On the third day after I discovered Chase's infidelity, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply tucked a cherry red lipstick that wasn't mine into the breast pocket of his favorite gray Armani suit. I left a single chestnut hair extension on the passenger seat of his brand new white Porsche 911 when he jolted awake at midnight, drenched in cold sweat from a nightmare. I curled against him just like always and whispered, "Did you do something you shouldn't have?" His body went rigid. He shoved me away, eyes darting with panic and guilt. I couldn't just let it go. 10 years of youth. 10 years of devotion. I wasn't about to feed them to the dogs. I would make him tear down everything he owned with his own two hands. Before we go on, subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Chase and I have been married 10 years. From the day he had nothing to the day Sterling Records became the music industry's new darling. I was the gentle, considerate wife who never gave him a moment's worry. I had once been the star pianist at Juilliard, the girl who gave up a scholarship to the Vienna Conservatory so I could play house and raise our child. Our Ben is 8 this year, bright and adorable to the outside world. We were the textbook perfect family, living in a sprawling Beverly Hills mansion, attending red carpet events hand in hand, our lives a glossy spread in lifestyle magazines, until 3 days ago, when my best friend Stella texted me a photo. In it, Chase had his arm around a young girl's waist as they walked into the Grand Hotel Los Angeles, just 2 blocks from our home. I recognized her, Sophie Carter. The 22-year-old pop prodigy Chase had just signed to his label, all youthful glow and ruthless ambition. Stella raged over the phone, threatening to storm over and tear the cheaters apart. I stayed eerily calm. I told her to sit tight, then picked Ben up from Pacific Palisades Elementary, cooked dinner, and waited for Chase to come home. He walked in reeking of bespoke Tom Ford cologne and late-night whiskey, said he'd been entertaining clients. I smiled, helped him off with his jacket, ran his bath. Everything looked normal, as if that photo had been nothing but a harmless prank. But I knew something inside me had already shattered. I wasn't going to play the shrew, screaming and clawing. That would be vulgar and stupid. A man like Chase, pathologically narcissistic, addicted to control, would only respond to exposure with icy retaliation and a swift divorce petition that left me with nothing. I couldn't just let it go. 10 years of youth. 10 years of devotion. I wasn't about to feed them to the dogs. I would make him tear down everything he owned with his own two hands. The next morning I made Chase his usual breakfast, avocado toast and poached eggs, and pressed the gray Armani suit he loves, the one I'd given him to celebrate Sterling Records' IPO on the NASDAQ. From my jewelry box I took the cherry red YSL lipstick Stella had given me on my birthday. She'd said the shade was too loud for me, perfect for making trouble. I twisted the tube and brushed the tip along the inside edge of his breast pocket, leaving a faint, flower-shaped smear. When I finished, I hung the jacket back in the walk-in closet as if nothing had happened. Chase came down nodding his silk tie, complaining he'd slept terribly, haunted by nightmares. I straightened his collar and murmured, "Maybe you're overworked. Let's take Ben to our Lake Tahoe cabin this weekend." He grunted a vague yes, shrugged into the jacket, and hurried out. I watched from the bay window until his Porsche vanished into the morning traffic on Sunset Boulevard, a cold smile tugging at my lips. Chase, the show is just beginning. That afternoon I drove to Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. Chase had recently bought the white Porsche to make shuttling Ben easier, but I knew it was really his newest toy for showing off and chasing skirts. I walked into a high-end wig boutique and purchased a chestnut, waist-length wave, sunglasses on, mask up. I headed to the underground garage beneath Sterling Records headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. He had a crucial board meeting, so I knew he'd be locked in his office. I used the spare key he'd given me years ago to open the Porsche and slid into the passenger seat. I plucked 3 strands from the wig, one I dropped between the seat cushions, one I looped around the seat belt buckle, one I let fall onto the floor mat. Then I lifted my phone and snapped a picture, bright California sunlight, white leather upholstery, and that single chestnut hair glowing like an accusation. I sent the photo to Sophie from an anonymous Google Voice number. I'd copied her cell from Chase's phone the last time he came home drunk. No text, no signature. Sometimes an image is 10,000 times more lethal than words. Chase didn't walk through the door until after midnight, his face so dark it looked ready to storm. He hurled his suit jacket onto the Italian leather couch, chest heaving. I widened my eyes in faux concern. What happened? Who upset you? He waved me off. Just company crap. I picked up the jacket, pretending to hang it, then let a small gasp escape. I pinched the cherry lipstick from the inside pocket and held it up, blinking innocently. "Honey, is this a gift from you? The color's gorgeous." Chase's face drained of blood. He snatched the lipstick, stammering, "No, one of the female executives dropped it during the meeting. That's all." "Really?" I tilted my head, smiling like a child who'd found a secret. "Interesting taste she has." I didn't press further. I simply went to warm him some lobster bisque, but I could feel his scalding gaze on my back, suspicion, fear, and dawning respect for an enemy he hadn't known was in his house. Near dawn I was jolted awake by the ragged sound of his breathing. Chase was caught in another nightmare. He sat on the edge of the bed, gasping for breath, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. I slipped my arms around him from behind, pressed my cheek to his back, and asked softly, "Did you do something that let me down?" His body went rigid as if he'd been electrocuted. He shoved me away almost instantly, rolled off the bed, and bolted into the bathroom. I heard muffled retching through the door. I lay still, listening, not a single ripple in my heart. "Chase, this is just the appetizer. The hell you handwove for me. It's your turn to taste it." The next few days, Chase grew more and more unhinged. He checked his phone constantly, turning away whenever a call came. He'd stare into my eyes and fire off bizarre questions. "Where did you go today? Did anyone special contact you?" I knew that lipstick, those few strands of hair, had taken root inside his mind like seeds. He was starting to suspect. Not me, Sophie. He believed Sophie was leaving these little clues, flaunting them in my face, pressuring him for a divorce. Exactly the reaction I'd counted on. A man that arrogant can't stand being challenged by a woman he thought he could toy with. And Sophie was never the type to stay hidden in the shadows. The photo I'd sent her anonymously was more than enough to ignite her jealousy and resentment. Soon I was scrolling through their heated WhatsApp fights on Chase's phone. Sophie demanded to know if there was someone else. Chase shot back that she'd better stop playing cheap tricks. Watching them tear into each other felt better than a front row seat at Carnegie Hall. But it still wasn't enough. I needed the fire to roar higher. One day a mystery courier package arrived, a bottle of bespoke Le Labo cologne, exquisitely boxed, price tag steep. A card in ornate script read, "For Chase, may your charm never fade," signed with the unfamiliar initials L.M. I set the bottle dead center on the entryway console table. When Chase came home and spotted it, his brows snapped together. "What's this?" "No idea. Anonymous delivery. Addressed to you," I said lightly. "The scent's unique. Kind of like Sophie's, only more refined." His eyes narrowed to slits. He lifted the bottle, turning it over and over, his face shifting between storm clouds. I smiled inwardly. The cologne had been custom blended to mimic Sophie's signature fragrance. Only richer, longer lasting. I wanted Chase convinced she had a wealthier sponsor waiting in the wings, someone from New York's Upper East Side, someone who could outmatch him. To sell the performance, I recorded a flirtatious voice memo with a pitch shifter, a man promising Sophie better resources, a slot at the Grammys, and a penthouse in Manhattan if she dropped Chase fast. I fired it off from a fresh anonymous Proton Mail account straight to Chase. Subject line, "Your kitten seems to have a new owner." When he played the clip, his complexion turned slate. He hurled his iPhone to the floor. He launched a frantic investigation into Sophie, into every person she'd met lately, event promoters, music producers, even her hairstylist. Suspicion and rage consumed him. His need to control her spiked to obsession. Sophie, baffled and hounded, edged toward a breakdown. She couldn't grasp why Chase had mutated overnight. Their fights multiplied, each uglier than the last. That was when my private eye snapped photos of Sophie sharing cozy coffees with unfamiliar men at Blue Bottle Cafe in Silver Lake. The men, of course, were actors on my payroll, struggling performers from Hollywood looking for extra cash. I emailed the shots to a handful of tabloid bloggers under throwaway handles. Within 24 hours, headlines blazed across TMZ and Page 6. Pop star Sophie Carter caught in love Pentagon? Is Sterling Records boss Chase Sterling just a fling? Chase's face went chlorophyll green. He'd become a national punchline. And Sterling Records stock nosedived 15% on the scandal. I realized bedroom theatrics alone wouldn't topple Chase's empire. I needed a professional accomplice. A stiletto honed for corporate kill shots. My gaze landed on Connor Bennett. Connor, Harvard-educated lawyer, recently returned from London, undefeated in messy divorces and boardroom knife fights. More importantly, his late father had been Chase's first business partner. Before Chase muscled him out of the company, he died bitter and broke. His life's work stolen. Connor's hatred for Chase burns hotter than mine. I invited him to a quiet cafe tucked behind the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, LACMA. There I laid every card on the table. The timeline of Chase's infidelity, the leverage I'd built, the first whispers of cooked books inside Sterling Records, falsified streaming numbers, embezzled artist advances, tax loopholes that reeked of fraud. When I finished, his eyes behind the titanium frames glinted like scalpels. "Sterling," he said, "what do you want?" "I want him stripped of everything, his mansion, his fortune, his perfect public facade," I replied. "Money. I reclaim only what's legally mine. The rest funds the Bennett Foundation for aspiring musicians, Crushed talents like your father. Like I almost was. Surprise flickered across his face. He hesitated, then extended his hand. Deal. Chase's empire will be our shared masterpiece. With Connor on board, my scheme gained razor-sharp momentum. He deployed his contacts at the SEC and IRS, quietly harvesting sterling record skeletons, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, unreported income from private concerts, kickbacks from venue bookings. We stockpiled ammunition for the final salvo. Chase unraveled further every day. Online mockery, sinking share prices, Sophie's hysterics, an invisible net tightening around him. Sleep fled him. Whiskey became breakfast. During a live-streamed board meeting, he exploded at a junior analyst, screaming obscenities that went viral within minutes. And I kept playing the perfect wife. I brought him warm honey water after his binges. I stroked his temples while promising everything would be fine, but my tenderness was the deadliest poison of all. One night he came home blind drunk and found me in the living room, lazily arranging peonies from our garden. He rushed over and knocked the crystal vase to the floor. You knew all along, didn't you? His eyes were bloodshot. A wounded animal. Are you enjoying the show? I stepped back in alarm, letting fear and grievance flood my face. Chase, what's wrong? What did I do? I did nothing wrong. He jabbed a finger at my nose, roaring, that bitch Sophie, how dare she do this to me? Were you coaching her behind my back? And all those rumors at the company, did you spread them? Are you hoping I drop dead? I watched his frenzy and laughed inside. Chase, I've given this family, given you, everything, my career, my dreams, my heart, and this is what you suspect? My tears seemed to sober him a fraction. The madness drained from his face, replaced by a deep, hollow exhaustion. He collapsed onto the sofa, head in his hands, groaning in pain. I walked over and knelt beside him, patting his back the way I always did. Honey, I know you're under pressure, but you can't keep doing this to yourself. You'll wreck your health. My voice was soft. Why don't we get away? Just the two of us? Fly to the Hamptons for a week? He lifted his head, eyes complicated. Maybe my refusal to abandon him sparked a flicker of guilt and need. He nodded. He was already on the cliff's edge, and I would be the one to give the final push. My next target became Chase's most trusted lieutenant, his COO, Samson Reed. Samson had built the company with Chase from day one. Brilliant, fiercely loyal, the brains behind Sterling's biggest hits. Most of Sterling's operations ran through him. He was Chase's right arm, his left leg. If Chase lost faith in Samson, it would cripple him. And I knew a secret only Chase and I shared. Years ago, Samson had embezzled $200,000 from the company. His mother had been critically ill with cancer, desperate for cash for experimental treatment. He'd made one stupid mistake. Chase, magnanimous on the surface, hadn't called the police, just made Samson sign a confession and used it as a leash, turning him into an obedient workhorse ever since, working 80-hour weeks for half the salary he deserved. That confession was locked in Chase's office safe, and I knew the combination, my own birthday. How poetic. One Saturday afternoon I took Ben to the office to see Daddy, giving me access to Chase's corner suite. I sent Ben to play in the lobby with Samson's assistant, stepped inside, and opened the safe with practiced ease. I photographed the confession with my phone and, from an anonymous number, texted the images to Samson. No caption, no threats. A capable man can tolerate anything except being kept on a choke chain like a dog. Samson had swallowed it for years. Now I was offering him the key. His reaction was faster than I'd hoped. Next morning he handed Chase his resignation. Chase refused to accept it. He summoned Samson to his office, exploded in rage, threatened him with the confession and prison time. Samson stayed calm. Chase, I already have a copy. If you call the cops or stall my exit, I don't mind letting the whole company, the SEC, and every music blog in the country see exactly how a generous other boss can be. Chase nearly smashed his desk apart. He couldn't figure out how a document locked in a safe had leaked. He began frantically suspecting everyone, his assistant, his lawyers, even Sophie. He wondered if Sophie had teamed up with Samson to punish him. He wondered if other execs were staging a coup. He even began to wonder about me. That night he staggered home drunk, grabbed my wrist, eyes crimson. Was it you? Did you give Samson that file? His grip hurt. Tears shimmered in my eyes. I gazed at him, voice quivering. Chase, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about a confession. I stay home every day taking care of Ben. What could I possibly do? My tears, my perfect weakness, shook his certainty. He let go, slumped on the carpet, head in hands, muttering, if not you, then who? Who's out to get me? I knelt, stroking his hair. Honey, don't torture yourself. Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. After so many years, Samson wouldn't betray you. My words were a poison blade sliding straight into the heart of his paranoia. His head snapped up, eyes blazing with delusion. No, he did betray me. Everyone wants to stab me in the back. A leader who's lost his right arm and is surrounded by suspicion and terror is only one fatal misstep away. Sophie's retaliation arrived sooner and harder than I'd expected. She began dropping hints in public about her intimacy with Chase. In interviews with Rolling Stone, she flaunted the limited edition Cartier bracelet he'd given her. On Instagram, she posted coy selfies shot in his office. Angles anything but innocent, captioned with lyrics about forbidden love. To outsiders it might seem like idle gossip. To the wife, it was open war. Stella called 3 times, fuming that Sophie was flaunting herself, treating me like I was invisible. I only smiled and told her to let the girl perform. The bigger the spectacle, the worse Chase's headache. Sure enough, Chase scrambled to put out fires. He pacified me while muzzling Sophie, threatening to pull her album release, cut her tour funding. He bought me the newest Hermes Birkin, compensation for my suffering. He had no idea that, while I stared at him pleading guilty and scheming at once, I only felt sick. At the same time, his treatment of Sophie was getting worse. From their quarreling WhatsApp thread, I saw Chase warn her, if she ever dared make another move on her own, he would blacklist her from the industry forever. Sophie wouldn't be outdone. She threatened him right back. If he tried, she would spill everything between them. Every text, every hotel receipt, every promise of marriage. Chase was furious, but for now he didn't dare tear off the mask with her. Sophie was the rookie he had bet the entire year on, and he had poured millions into her. Studio time, PR campaigns, opening slots on Taylor Swift's tour. If the deal exploded now, the money he'd front-loaded would all sink without a trace. Watching this arrogant man cornered by a woman he despised gave me a pleasure I had never tasted before. My second sit-down with Connor happened in his sleek law office in Century City. This time we weren't circling each other. It was a genuine war council. Following the leads you gave me, I audited Sterling Records' last 3 years of ledgers and project cash flow, Connor said, nudging his glasses and sliding a stack of folders across the table. On the surface, flawless. But Chase is too arrogant. He believes he can micromanage the world, so every shady move left footprints. He tapped one report, this year-end project, the Rising Star Initiative, to tap Los Angeles's cultural grant. They inflated investment figures by 300% and faked venue bookings. The point man was Samson. I caught his drift at once. You're saying we start here? Exactly. A cold grin cut across Connor's face. Samson's resignation already rocked Chase. It also left a landmine behind. Only Samson knew the real numbers. With Chase reeling and his books slipping out of control, we can bait a trap he won't be able to refuse. Our blueprint snapped into focus. At its heart was an investment trap cut to Chase's exact measurements. Through his network, Connor incorporated an offshore shell company, Polaris Capital, registered in Delaware with a fake address in Manhattan. In Polaris' name we offered Sterling Records an olive branch, $50 million in strategic financing to expand their artist roster and fund a national tour. To a Chase besieged on every side and hemorrhaging cash. That check looked like the rope that would pull him ashore. To sell the con, I even rang old contacts of my father's and flew in a retired Goldman Sachs fund manager whose name still opens doors on Wall Street to play Polaris frontman. Chase met the delegation with a warmth and deference he had never shown anyone before. He personally ushered the investors through headquarters, wined and dined them at Nobu Malibu, and painted them a skywide vision of Sterling Records dominating the global music scene. Every syllable landed on the wire I had planted in his office. The talks glided along. The only condition Polaris set was an upfront $1 million assessment and seeding fee, standard for high-risk investments. Or so we told him. Chase said yes, almost before the sentence was finished. He needed the lifeline so desperately that he raided the last operating cash meant for employee salaries and vendor payables. The instant his fountain pen scratched across the paper, the net we had been knotting for months drew tight. $1 million is no trifling sum for a company of Sterling's size, especially after weeks of ugly press that had already fractured its reputation and revenue. That misappropriation was the first domino. Long-timers were the first to feel the tremor. 2 straight weeks had passed without payroll. At first Chase could still pacify them with a temporary cash flow squeeze. Solved soon. But once word leaked that company money had been funneled into the Polaris black hole, morale collapsed. Once loyal lieutenants now whispered in corridors, resumes open on their laptops. Next came the allied vultures, distributors and venue owners who used to toast brotherhood at his table lined up at reception, contracts in hand, demanding every overdue sent. Chase burned through his contact list begging for bridge loans. But every old friend suddenly had unreachable voicemail, thanks to Connor's discreet warnings about Sterling's impending collapse. Then Sophie delivered the coup de grace. Smelling blood, she cut herself loose, announced the split in a People magazine exclusive, and in record time wrapped herself around a Silicon Valley tech billionaire. The headline, "Pop star Sophie Carter moves on from disgraced music mogul Chase Sterling," shattered him. He locked himself inside his office for 3 full days and nights. When the door finally opened, the man who emerged looked 10 years older, eyes inflamed, face unshaven, the swaggering prince of Hollywood gone. He turned volatile, suspicious, lashing out at any shadow. Staff meetings ended in random screaming. Trivial glitches sparked office-wide explosions. Chase's mind was fracturing, and all I had to do was watch him slide toward the abyss. Just as his nerves hovered at the snapping point, I decided the moment had come for the final gift. I invited him to dinner under the pretext of a business discussion. The venue, Olivetta, the West Hollywood restaurant we had once claimed as ours, where he'd proposed to me 10 years earlier. I arrived to find him already there, staring through the window at the flowing traffic on Santa Monica Boulevard. Gaze empty. Barely weeks had passed, yet he looked a decade aged. "Long time no see," I greeted. Sliding into the opposite seat, he lifted his head. Surprise flickered, then fury drowned it. You engineered all of this, didn't you?" I blinked innocently. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I just heard you've hit a rough patch and thought I'd stop by to see if there's anything I can do." "Help?" He gave a cold laugh, as though I'd told the world's funniest joke. "You? Helpful? Luna, when did you get so good at acting?" "Maybe you never really knew me," I said, gently stirring my latte, my tone flat, just like I never really knew you. I looked him in the eye and spoke each word with precision. "Chase, have you ever considered that everything happening to you right now is exactly what you deserve?" His face drained to chalk white. I went on. "You betrayed our marriage, trampled my dignity, even tried to turn me into a soulless puppet, just like you, someone who abandons their dreams for a man's ego. Did you honestly think I was stupid enough to let you keep pulling my strings?" I pulled a stack of photographs from my bag and tossed them onto the table. Shots of him and Sophie, intimate in every setting, Beverly Hills hotels, his office, even our lake house. "Surely you haven't forgotten these?" I asked coolly. "Oh, and there's this." I tapped play on my phone. His voice and Sophie's filled the air. "That washed-up pianist wife of mine. I'm so done with her. Once I get my hands on her family's trust fund, I'll kick her to the curb." Chase began to shake violently. He pointed at me, lips trembling, but no sound came out. Surprised, I stood, looking down at him, a frosty, cruel smile on my lips. "This is only the beginning. I'll collect every last thing you owe me, piece by piece." I turned and walked out of the restaurant without a backward glance. The day Chase's company was raided by the IRS and his bank accounts were frozen, I served him with divorce papers. I set the document in front of him, an airtight agreement drafted by Connor, the best divorce attorney in Los Angeles. It spelled out, in plain language, that because he had cheated during our marriage and attempted to hide marital assets, the offshore accounts, the unreported income, I was claiming 70% of whatever remained of the company and full custody of Ben. Chase stared at the papers, bloodshot eyes fixed on me. Suddenly he laughed, a wild, desperate cackle. "Luna, it was you all along." He finally connected the dots. The cherry red lipstick, the stray hair, Samson's resignation, Sophie's betrayal, the Polaris scam, every domino had my fingerprints on it. I didn't deny it. I met his gaze and said calmly, "Chase, this is what you owe me." "Owe you?" He snorted as though I'd cracked the joke of the century. "I gave you 10 years of the high life, mansions, cars, designer clothes. What more could you possibly want? What I wanted was what you once promised, one love, one life, one partner." I spoke each word like a hammer driving nails. "You couldn't deliver, so everything you built gets repossessed." He lunged, hands reaching for my throat. I didn't flinch. I simply lifted my phone, pressed record, and told him, "Chase, everything you do to me right now is admissible in court. It'll only add to your fraud and tax evasion charges." His fingers froze a centimeter from my neck. For the first time ever, I saw naked fear in his eyes. He finally understood. The woman he thought he could control had become something unfamiliar and terrifying. His arms dropped. He crumpled to the floor. The divorce trial was almost anticlimactic. My evidence, photos, audio recordings, forged ledgers, even the attempted assault, tilted the scale so far the judge barely glanced his way. Sterling Records went into bankruptcy liquidation. Chase lost every penny and, on top of that, faced 18 months in federal prison for tax evasion and commercial fraud. Sophie was blacklisted by every major record label for fabricating rumors and slander. Her promising career extinct overnight. Samson, armed with the client roster and core assets I'd funneled to him anonymously, started his own label, Reed Music Group, the day he walked out of Sterling. Within months his company stood solid in the industry, signing Grammy-nominated artists. Later he reached out through Stella, begging to thank me in person. I refused. I'd freed him only so he could be the final wrecking ball. Our relationship was pure transaction. When the dust settled, I packed up Ben and left the Beverly Hills mansion that had held a decade of joy and sorrow. With my settlement, I launched the Luna Foundation, dedicated to bankrolling talented kids from low-income families who lack connections, the way I once did. I also returned to my Steinway. Preparing for the recital hall debut fate had delayed 10 long years. Stella asked if I still hated Chase. I thought about it, then shook my head. The moment he lost everything and became just another inmate at a federal correctional facility in Lompoc, the hatred evaporated. Those 10 years now feel like a drawn-out, absurd dream. Now I'm finally awake. It's time to live my own life. On the night of the performance, every seat at Disney Hall was filled. I wore a white gown and sat at the Steinway center stage. The spotlight found me, and in the front row Stella and Ben shot me twin thumbs-ups. I drew a breath, let my fingers settle on the keys, and released the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune. Music soared through the hall, pure, unfiltered, mine. In that instant I was no one's wife, no one's mother. I was simply Luna, shining for herself alone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, please like and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable tales. See you next time.